I collapsed before I ever reached the stage, my vision tunneling as the world spun away from me. One moment I was walking toward a master's degree I fought years for, and the next I was staring up at cold ceiling lights. Voices blurred around me as I struggled to understand how everything had fallen apart in seconds. The doctors called my parents, but they never showed up, not even out of courtesy. I lay in the air still wearing my graduation gown, trying to steady my breathing. Then my phone buzzed with a notification I wished I hadn't seen. It was a smiling backyard photo from my sister captioned, "Family Day without the drama." I stared at it until the screen dimmed, unable to type a single word back. My chest didn't hurt from collapsing, it hurt from realizing they hadn't even noticed I was gone. Days later, still hooked to machines, I unlocked my phone again with trembling fingers. What I found waiting for me wasn't comfort but confirmation of a truth I had ignored for years. The worst part of that day wasn't fainting, it was seeing how easily my absence fit into their lives. My name is Maria Bennett, and I learned early that love in my family came with conditions I never agreed to. I grew up in a small Pennsylvania neighborhood where porches glowed warmly at night. But inside our home, the warmth always seemed to stop right before it reached me. From the outside, our holidays looked picture perfect, the kind neighbors admired. Inside, I walked through a constant chill no one else felt. Silence filled the gaps where affection should have lived. My mother, Linda, built her entire world around my younger sister, Emily. She called her delicate and sensitive, someone who always needed a little extra. That extra often came from pieces of me. My father, Richard, had his own story about who I was supposed to be. "Maria, you're the dependable one," he always said, as if it were a title carved into my bones. He meant it as praise, but it felt like a job I had never signed up for. Whenever something needed fixing, softening, or quietly absorbing, it landed at my feet without discussion. I tied Emily's hair for school because Mom was running late again. I took the blame for a shattered vase because Emily cried faster than I could speak. Emily's birthdays were full productions, pink banners, cupcakes, and 20 laughing kids in the yard. Mine were quiet evenings with a paper plate and a small cake. Every year they promised we'd celebrate properly next time, but next time never arrived. One winter, burning with a fever that made the room tilt, I waited on the sofa for someone to sit with me. Instead, Mom zipped Emily into her recital costume while Dad told me to be a good sport. They rushed out as the house dimmed, leaving me alone with the clicking heater and the knowledge that no one would hear me. That was the rhythm of my childhood, Emily shining while I learned to disappear. I became the quiet solution to problems no one thanked me for. And every year, the gap between us widened until it felt like we lived in two different families. Emily received softness while I received expectations, and somewhere in that uneven rhythm, I convinced myself that silence was the same as strength. Leaving for college in Boston felt like stepping into air that finally moved freely. There, for the first time, I built a life that actually belonged to me. I worked 2 jobs, stayed up studying on borrowed energy, and tried to piece together a future with my own hands. But the calls from home always followed, stretching behind me like a long shadow. They were never simple check-ins, they were requests dressed as emergencies. "We're behind on the electric bill. Emily's card is maxed. Your sister needs help this month," and every time, even when I couldn't afford it. I sent money because that old line, "You're strong," was still lodged under my skin. Boston gave me people who noticed things my family never had. Jenna, the co-worker who shoved soup into my hands and told me to stop apologizing for being exhausted. Mark, who frowned when I swayed on my feet during a shift change. And then there was Dr. Lane, who only needed a few sentences from me to say, "You're carrying too much." Far too much. Their concern felt unfamiliar, like a language I had never been taught. But even with support around me, I kept pushing myself past every limit. I kept stretching thinner, promising I'd rest after graduation, after finals, after just one more shift. I didn't know I was moving toward a collapse I could no longer outrun. The months leading up to graduation felt like living inside a tightening vice. My days started before sunrise and ended long after the last train rattled past my apartment windows. I worked full-time at the hospital, grabbed weekend shifts at the cafe, and squeezed my master's coursework into whatever scraps of time I found. People told me I was impressive, but I didn't feel impressive. I felt like a candle burning from both ends and melting in the middle. Every breath felt borrowed, every hour stolen. The trouble at home refused to slow down just because I was drowning. In fact, it sped up. Mom called first, her voice heavy with the familiar script. "We're short on the water bill this month. Your dad's hours got cut." A few days later, my phone buzzed again with another message from Emily. "Maria, I messed up. My rent's late. Can you cover it just this once?" But it was never once. Then came a car repair, another overdue payment, a maxed out card, another urgent need. All of it dropped onto my shoulders like it belonged there. Some nights I stared at my bank balance, feeling the numbers crush me. But every time, I still hit transfer, that same old guilt. "You're strong." Maria kept me from ever saying no. My body tried to warn me something was wrong. The warnings were small at first, easy to ignore. A tremor started in my hands while I charted patient notes, subtle enough to pretend it wasn't real. Then came the dizziness when I stood too fast, the kind that made the room sway like a loose pendulum. After 12-hour shifts, a tight pressure settled in my chest, but I blamed coffee, blamed stress, blamed anything except the truth. I was running on fumes, barely held together by routine and denial. Jenna noticed before I did, her brows knitting as she asked, "Maria, you okay? You look pale." I told her I was just tired, and while that wasn't a lie, it wasn't anywhere close to the whole truth. One night after a brutal double shift, I collapsed into a break room chair and checked my phone out of habit. A tag from Emily flashed across the screen, and I tapped it thinking it was a joke or meme. Instead, it was a backyard family photo, laughing faces, full plates, sunlight, and the caption, "Family Day without the drama." Something inside me dipped like a loose floorboard, giving way. Not anger, not yet, just a cold, hollow ache that spread through my ribs. I didn't comment or ask why she tagged me. I simply turned off the screen and pressed my thumb into the table's edge until it hurt. Walking home later, the world tilted again. The sidewalk swayed beneath me, and I grabbed a railing until everything stopped spinning. My pulse throbbed in my ears. But I told myself it was just exhaustion and kept going because resting felt like a luxury I hadn't earned. The signs kept piling up until one refused to be ignored. While charting vitals in the air, the numbers on the monitor doubled, then tripled, as if the room had slipped out of focus. Mark touched my arm and murmured, "Maria, you need to sit down," but I whispered that I was fine, even though we both knew I wasn't. Still, I pushed on. One more week, one more shift, one more assignment, one more emergency bill. My body was breaking, but I called it discipline. I didn't know I was counting down to the moment everything inside me would finally snap. Graduation morning felt unreal, like walking through a world made of fragile glass. Boston gleamed, that day sunlight sharp on the buildings, banners fluttering, families filling the lawn with balloons and flowers. Everyone looked excited and whole, and I kept pretending I was too. I smiled at classmates and adjusted my gown even though my hands shook. My heart pounded too hard, like it was trying to warn me of something I refused to hear. I checked my phone for any message from home, but there was nothing. As the ceremony began, applause rolled across the field like a wave. Graduates rose row by row, walking toward the stage in bright, organized lines. I kept scanning the bleachers left, right, top row, bottom row, searching for faces that weren't there. Their seats were empty, but not because they were saving them for me. My seats were never meant to be filled at all. Then my phone buzzed, vibrating like a reminder of something I didn't want to name. A text from Mom blinked on the screen, "Traffic is bad. We'll get there soon." Seconds later came another, "Go ahead. We'll catch up." I pocketed my phone and pretended it didn't sting. Then my name echoed through the speakers, "Maria Bennett." I stood, knees shaking, vision blurring. I forced myself forward, one step, then another, until the world suddenly lurched sideways. A roar filled my ears as grass, chairs, and faces spun in a dizzying swirl. I collapsed before reaching the first stair, swallowed by the sound of gasps and rushing footsteps. A coldness crept down my fingers as my senses slipped away. Voices blurred, light faded, and the ground felt impossibly far beneath me. Then there was nothing. When I woke, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled my lungs. Machines beeped in slow, steady rhythms, anchoring me back into my body. A warm blanket covered my legs, and an infrared tugged at my arm. The air ceiling sharpened into view as muffled voices circled the room. Doctor Whitman leaned over, calm but serious, and said, "Maria, you fainted from severe exhaustion." Stress, dehydration, heart strain, you've pushed your body too far. You're lucky you didn't collapse somewhere alone, he added. His words didn't scare me, they simply confirmed what I'd been outrunning. I swallowed hard and asked the question that had already formed in my mind. Did my parents come? He hesitated just long enough to tell me the answer was no. We called several times, left messages, no one arrived. Silence filled the room, not painful, but revealing. Hours later, when my hands finally stopped shaking, I reached for my phone. And there it was, another notification waiting for me. One more truth I wasn't ready to see. Emily had tagged me in a photo, and my chest tightened as I opened it. My family stood clustered around the backyard grill, laughing, plates stacked with food in their hands. Emily beamed in the center, and the caption read, "Family Day without the drama." The ache in my chest wasn't illness, it was clarity. They hadn't missed my ceremony by accident, nor were they trapped in traffic. They had made a conscious choice to be absent. A slow, measured exhale left my lungs. Different from resignation, it was the beginning of a shift inside me. Something was cracking open, something I hadn't felt before. Yet, the real breaking point waited in the wings, patient and inevitable. Days later, my strength still fragile, my phone buzzed relentlessly, 75 missed calls from home. The vibrations started soft, then pounded against the metal table like an urgent drumbeat. I had barely returned from the hospital, still pale, still dizzy, moving with a body that no longer fully trusted me. Boston's evening light filtered through the blinds, soft and golden, falling over the stack of discharge papers. Buzz, 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 it wouldn't stop. When I finally grasped my phone, the brightness nearly blinded me. 75 missed calls, all from Mom, Dad, home, Emily. Over and over, their names flashed like a relentless chant. My stomach sank, not with fear, not with guilt, but with something colder, sharper. I didn't call back immediately, I scrolled instead, bracing myself. The messages arrived in waves, demanding attention. Why aren't you answering? This is serious. Maria, pick up. You can't just disappear. We need you now. Emily is in trouble. Of course it was about Emily, it always was. But the deeper truth hit me like ice water. They hadn't reached out during my collapse, the year stay, or the hours afterward. Only when their problem landed on my doorstep did they call. I kept scrolling. Photos, bank notices, blurry bills, loan documents, all piled on top of each other. My name, my signature, except it wasn't my real signature. It was an old scan from a rental form years ago. My breath caught, but panic didn't rise. Instead, a startling steadiness anchored me. They had forged my name, and the bank wanted confirmation or the debt would fall back on them. In that moment, I wasn't their daughter, I was leverage. I didn't respond, not yet. Instead, I texted one person, "Can you come over? I need you." 20 minutes later, Jenna arrived with takeout soup and a calm, steadying presence. Her eyes scanned me, noting my pale face and trembling hands. "What happened?" she asked. I handed her my phone. She read everything in silence, jaw tightening. "Maria, this is serious. They can't do this to you. This is fraud." The word landed like a bell, sharp, undeniable. Fraud, the thing I'd been conditioned not to name. Jenna sat on the edge of my bed and whispered, "We're not letting them trap you again. Not this time." Together, we opened my laptop and pulled up the messages, the documents, the timelines. For the first time, I didn't defend or excuse them. I let the truth exist on its own. "They used me," I whispered. "They always have," Jenna said softly. That night, weak and aching, I joined a video call with a financial attorney she recommended. I gripped my phone with both hands to steady it as I presented the evidence. The attorney sighed. "This is unauthorized use of your information. You don't owe them a single dollar. What they did is illegal." Illegal, the word was sharp, clear, freeing. My chest unclenched as if a fist had finally opened. The attorney walked me through steps, protections, and boundaries I hadn't realized I could set. "If they contact you again, tell them you're aware of the forgery and will not participate," he said. The words both terrified and liberated me. When the call ended, I sat in quiet, breathing in new air. Jenna squeezed my hand. "You're not alone," she said, and for the first time, I believed it. The next morning, the sun barely rising, my phone rang again, Mom's number. Jenna nodded, signaling me to answer. I switched to speaker. Mom's voice erupted, frantic and sharp. Maria, finally. Do you have any idea how stressed we've been? Why didn't you answer? I leaned back on the couch, steadying my breath, calm. I was in the hospital, I said plainly. Silence followed, then Mom cleared her throat. Well, yes, but Emily is in a crisis. You need to focus. The truth was unveiled, raw and unflinching. Dad's voice followed, booming. You need to call the bank today. They won't talk to us without you. Your sister's future is on the line. I didn't flinch. Dad, you used my signature without my permission. A long pause followed. Mom jumped in. We only did it because you're responsible. You can handle it better than Emily. Stop being dramatic. The same word Emily had used in her backyard caption while I lay in the air. I swallowed, voice steady. I'm not signing anything, Dad snapped. Excuse me, I'm not signing, I repeated firmly. I'm not covering the loan. Finally, the leverage was mine to release. I'm not fixing this. You have to, I said, voice steady. Mom shrieked, panic cutting through the line. We could lose everything, Maria. Think about your family. I closed my eyes, feeling every year of giving my life to their needs. Dad's tone hardened, sharp as steel. If you don't help, we're finished. Jenna leaned close, whispering, say it. I swallowed and did. I spoke to an attorney. What you did is illegal. If you contact me about this loan again, I will take legal action. The silence stretched endlessly, heavy and suffocating. Then Dad growled, you're threatening us. I'm protecting myself, Mom's voice cracked, desperation replacing anger. We need you. Please, a year ago, their pleas would have broken me. Now, they only revealed the truth. They didn't need me, they needed what I provided. I drew a long, grounding breath. I'm done being the solution to problems I didn't create. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the strong one so Emily never has to grow up. Mom's voice trembled. Maria, I cut her off firmly, no. Not anymore, then pressed the red button. The call ended. Clean. Final. Jenna exhaled shakily beside me. You did it, she said. My hands shook, but it wasn't fear, it was freedom finally landing in my body. That afternoon, I spent hours severing ties with every account, every automatic payment, every shared bill. I called companies, closed access, reset passwords, documented each step. Each action felt like cutting a cord that had bound me to a life of obligation. By sunset, for the first time in 27 years, I felt the weight lift. I stood at my window as the city glowed beneath a violet sky. I'm not their answer anymore, I whispered, tasting the truth like oxygen. As the last light slipped behind the skyline, I realized part 6 of my story wasn't about consequences for them, it was about freedom for me. Recovery didn't arrive in a flash. It came in small, steady breaths. I attended therapy consistently. I slept longer than I had in years. I learned to say no without my heart racing. And my body slowly forgave me for carrying everything it never should have. News about my family reached me only through distant neighbors. The loan defaulted, the bank intervened, and Emily had to face the legal consequences herself. For the first time, I wasn't the cleanup crew. Meanwhile, my Boston life shifted into something gentler. I moved into a sunlit studio and started a clinical job that respected boundaries. Jenna became my true family, the one who showed up without being asked. One evening, walking past blooming trees, I felt my chest light and unburdened. I wasn't waiting for another crisis, I was finally living my own life. Sometimes I think back to that day on the graduation stage, when my body made the choice my heart was too afraid to make. It forced me to stop, to see the truth, and to walk away. Now, surrounded by people who truly show up, I understand. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. If you've ever rebuilt your life from the ground up, know that you're not alone. Hit subscribe to join me for the next chapter.